Hello, this is Summer Shah, and thank you for joining the Patent Pending Made Simple testimonial. Today we have Turner. Turner, thanks for being here and sharing your experiences with Patent Pending Made Simple. Can you briefly introduce yourself and what you've been working on?
Absolutely. So my name's Turner Ray. I am currently a college student at Abilene Christian University, and I've worked with Summer multiple times at this point. And the most recent project that we've worked on is I'm starting a business making custom chin rests for violin and viola players. And so I have a unique design that I came up with and wanted to kind of get some protection on that and get that patented. And so we worked together and started using the AI technology that y'all been using, and it was great. It was extremely helpful. So that's kind of how we started out.
Awesome. And I'm sure we'll get into this in a second in terms of your experience. But before you started using the software, did you have any reservations or concerns about using it? What were maybe some of the biggest sticking points for you before you signed on?
Honestly, I didn't have anything that I was worried about or concerned. I mean, we had had some conversations about just what the process looks like in general because I didn't know a ton about patents in the first place. I had done your simple Google search, but that's about the extent of my knowledge. And so you kind of explained to me the difference between provisional, non-provisional, kind of how the process looks, if it's a utility versus design or that type of thing. And then when you explained how the AI works, so essentially, as far as I understand, I went through in y'all's program and kind of put in all the questions, and then the AI just kind of weaves it all together with essentially the knowledge that you have because the AI is trained by y'all. And I mean, thought that would it made complete sense to me, so I had no reservations about it.
Okay, well, good. Yeah, it is a little different. Like we met in person. We're both in San Antonio, and that helps, right? You're dealing with a real person who has a real process. But sometimes when you're just buying something off the internet, it's a little bit harder, right? So,
Sure, that
um,
does make sense.
yeah, yeah, very cool. So you had a very little reservations. What was your actual experience with the software? How did it work? Was it easy, difficult? A lot of people ask those questions to me.
Sure. I would say it took maybe a little bit of getting used to. So when you go through, you have all the questions, and in the text box where you're going to be typing, I think it takes you through how to make a chair, what the information for a chair. And once I started not reading those, which I shouldn't have done. But once I went back in and kind of made sure I was paying attention, it was extremely simple. I sometimes would do exactly what the example was if it was a more simple question. But then if I needed to, okay, well, that's what you would do for a chair. But in my case, I just kind of adjusted and it was extremely simple.
Okay, good. Yeah, I have had a lot of people say positive things about the chair example, so I'm glad to hear that's carrying over. But yeah, the AI kind of gets all the marketing buzzword and hype, But to me, the real value of the software is just being able to break it down into the components that we have because it kind of forces you to think like a patent attorney, I think. That's what a patent attorney does is helps you break down that invention and helps you protect each individual component and some combination of those components. And that's what the software does. And then the AI just kind of weaves it all together. Like you said, that's a great way of saying it.
Absolutely. And another thing on that, when I was going through, I think originally I had thought about maybe two or three different parts. And I think when I was going through it, I realized, oh, I actually need to include this. And I think I added a couple on. So it was definitely really helpful to get me thinking more about it, like you said, in the mind of a patent attorney.
Yeah, we had one other person who said that, like, hey, I felt like I was thinking like an engineer for a little while, like a marketer for a little while, and it's like, yeah, like that's exactly what we do. We try to weave it all together to build a comprehensive protection around your IP. Okay, very good. So the experience was fairly straightforward. What were your thoughts when you got the patent document itself? What were your initial or maybe later stage impressions on that?
I mean, it looked really official. I have never, like I said, really known much about patents. And so just reading through it, I was like, that's not what I said, but that's way better than what I said too. I was really impressed I mean, I feel like I was fairly descriptive in the way I filled out the application. Of course, I wanted to include everything that I know and wanted to explain all of that about the product. but there was nothing in it when the AI added all of the obviously the legal terms, but also the expanding to make it as broad as possible and protect as much as possible. There was nothing that was like wrong or incorrect or not matching my product, which I was extremely impressed with. That was one thing kind of thinking through. I was like, well, is it really going to understand? But it definitely did. And I mean, everything was spot on.
No good. Yeah, that's the other thing that we spend a lot of time working on because, with AI products, there's always the risk they hallucinate, right? So we, tuned it in such a way that it's very conservative, right, in terms of how it writes, and it really sticks with what you have as opposed to just going off on a tangent and like, making up stuff. That was my biggest concern. So I'm glad it sounds like we thread the needle there. And actually, it did an incredible job on your patent application. So I was very happy with the way it turned out. I reviewed it, and that process I think was pretty straightforward as well. But yeah, I think the work product at the end was really great.
Absolutely. I think we went in and tweaked maybe just a couple little things, and I remember some of that was on my end. I just didn't fill it out right in the first place. So, I mean, it was very minimal work after the AI went through and did everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, but very good. Well, thanks for the kind words. Before I let you go, if somebody's watching or listening and they're on the fence about purchasing patent pending made simple, would you have any words of advice for them?
Yeah, they should totally do it. I mean, it's not extremely time consuming. I think that's one thing we haven't really talked about. Once you kind of get into the product, you can sit down for, I'll say, 2 to 3 hours. And I mean, if you have all the knowledge of whatever the product or business is, I mean, you can knock that out. And working with y'all is extremely easy. I've learned a ton, and y'all are amazing people. And obviously, this product has helped me a ton. So I would totally do it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Raise a great point about time. Yeah, I think 2 to 3 hours is about the median time frame that it takes everyone. From my conversations, it seems like that tracks with you as well. And the other thing I tell people is that, for a non-provisional, it would take me about 40 hours to write a patent application. And there's nothing stopping an inventor from writing a good patent application as well, right? Like you're obviously smart enough to write one. It'll just take you a little bit of time, right? Because you had to go and check out some books on how to write a patent application and read them and then, draft and revise and try to restructure and create a framework for your patent application, all of which is like not rocket science, right? Like what the invention that you have done is actually the hard part, and the patents, I think, the easy part. It's just the time consuming part. So, I think with software, we always think of it as like being able to make that process efficient. And instead of it taking you on your own 100 hours to do it, hopefully it'll only take 2 or 3 hours.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned earlier, AI is such a big buzzword right now. But I think the places that it will stick and really help is the time saving, and then maybe just being more thorough than one person can be, because you always are going to miss something. And so I think the way y'all have applied it makes a ton of sense to me, and again is working really well.
Okay. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for all the kind words and for taking the time out. I know it's finals week next week, so I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. If anybody wants to learn more about your product, do you have a place to send them yet?
Absolutely. So if they want to learn, if you're a violinist or violist and want to get a customizable chin rest, you can go to embracestrings.com, and we have some social media links in there, and you can check everything out. Thank you for that.
Awesome. Yeah, of course. And we'll add those at the bottom of our YouTube or wherever this gets posted. So do check it out. It's a great product, and I'm looking forward to seeing where you take it next.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.